everybody. Welcome back, mothers. It's a few minutes past 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. You already know it's time for English Radio on the Club with Lucas here on RCE 106.9. Kick it. But I'm not alone here in the studios as we start this lovely day in March. It's the end of winter, right? When does this shit change? The end of March. So you have a few more weeks, children of the corn. But director, he's a triple threat: director, editor, producer, professor. Alex Lora. Should I call you Alex Lora or Alex Lora Cercos?
Whatever you want.
Alex
I mean,
Lora,
you can
man.
call me Alex.
Lora. Like I said, he's a triple threat, and this brother has a beautiful film coming out. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about it in just a few minutes, called Unicornios, Junicorns for my English speakers here. And of course, we're going to be bringing you a lot of stuff that is being distributed. Actually, it's coming out in May, if I'm not mistaken. It's dropping in May via Filmax, and we'll be talking about that and a whole lot more because he is a citizen of this here state, but he is also a resident of my fair city. So I really want to get to that in just a few minutes. Of course, we're going to be serving up a little bit of news that you can use in the English, as we do here on the Club with Lucas as well, as talking about some cinema love. Remember, you can follow us at social media at the Club with Lucas on Instagram or the Club W Lucas while we still have it on Twitter, because every week Elon pisses me off. And remember, you can also catch us on the YouTube now, streaming as of this year at 106.9 FM. You can catch us all over the city and the country at 106.9 as well. And RCE.com. Now let's get to some music, y'all, now. Because it's International Women's Month and International Women's Day tomorrow, we're making a mad shout. So all month long, we're only playing music from the female kind and probably some trans sisters as well. But I love me some Kaylee Uchis. Now, I don't know if you say Kali or Kaylee. I say Kaylee Uchis. We've been dropping her little tracks for a while now. Now, she hails from all over the world, but she actually does have some Latina blood in her as well, so you'll hear some inflections of Spanish in her tunes. We've been playing her for a couple of years here. Her music hasn't really taken off here so much yet, but I think that's going to change, y'all. And we'll be back here in 2 to 3 minutes. Remember, you can catch these jams live as well at rce.cat. And Moonlight will be back in 3 minutes for a little bit of news you can use, Children of the Corn.
Looking dolly-eyed, think I may go out tonight. I just wanna ride, get high.
I'm just kidding. Hey. That's actually from Mr. Show. Hey, 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 Kelly Uchi's there, and you already know. Well, above all, we're going to say this again because we are now entering near the second month of the second year of this ridiculous fight that's going on in Ukraine. The Ukraine fighting actually is really getting a bit strong against Russia. Russia has gone ahead and invaded the town of Bakhmut, which is currently basically just captured by Russian forces. Now, this is literally off the presses from the AP this morning with an interview. There was a drone that was sent through yesterday evening before nightfall of the city of Bakhmut, and it has been totally shattered, just much like Mariupol was last year as well. Now, what they're saying is that basically Russian forces are very likely to take over it, but this town of 70,000 people still has somewhere roughly, they're guesstimating between 3,000 and 5,000 people still there. Of that original population, like I said, when you see those drone videos, you'll see it is a shattered city, shattered town, I guess you would say. Ukrainian soldier was reported as saying, "We are killing Russian soldiers one by one as they can, so we can thwart any more advances within the territory." But it looks like Russia's going to take over that very, very soon. What does that mean? It's not the most strategically placed area there, so the people are questioning why that could be anything except perhaps to make that as a base where they can go ahead and have more land that they can seize, you know, little by little. That's the idea anyway. Over here in our territories, the Socialist Party is proposing for this Yes is Law that is going to, the Yes is Yes law that is being debated today in Congress again, as it's been going on at least once every week in the cabinets these days. Higher penalties for attacks with violence or intimidation is the idea behind that. The reform of the socialists on this comprehensive law would be about sexual freedom and increasing the general maximum and minimum sentences by 1 to 2 years for the most serious cases. Now, in one of my sessions the other day, with an interesting group of older young adults, you know, 16 to 19-year-olds, one of them piped up that we were speaking about if you could eliminate one person off the face of the earth, and if I can bring my brother Alex Lora, director, into this conversation, he said, I asked, who would you want to wipe off? And most people honestly said, and it was a very interesting case, Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump. It's really interesting. But one boy in the back said he would want to take off Irene Montero. And everybody kind of was shocked. And I said, why? And he said, because of the Yes is Yes law and what it's permitting. And then one of the girls piped in, you mean permitting protection for certain individuals that haven't had it? And another girl suddenly said, your sister is trans. I didn't know this about this student. And it was a very interesting case where a few boys also kind of felt protective of his side. And I feel like there is a shift, there's a shifting in the force of men feeling like victims consistently. Am I wrong in that?
I think you're not wrong. Yeah.
Excuse me, it might be too cold in here. I mean, as someone who works, you are a father, you are a working director and producer in 2 countries, the U.S. and here. Do you see that there is something is this really a masculinity issue?
No, I think, maybe men that, that have to deal with kind of toxic masculinity are becoming a little bit sensitive, and that's a way to get back, like attacking groups that are,
Minority
groups, yeah.
Yeah, underprivileged, usually underserviced. It's an interesting thing that's going to be continued to be debated within Moncloa. And I think it should be, just comprehension, judicial reform everywhere. Now, I would like to also say that a lot of people on a certain side of the aisle, Pepe Vox, but specifically the Peperos, have talked a lot about constitutional reform. And might I remind everybody that original Alianza Popular voted completely against the Constitution when we were born, actually. And So when they talk about that, we need to remind those bitches that they didn't even vote in favor of it 40-something years ago. Moving on to something a little more serious as well. Yesterday, China's new foreign minister gave its loudest rebuke to Washington, D.C., saying, and I am paraphrasing, but practically verbatim, the world's two biggest superpowers are heading towards an inevitable conflict if D.C. does not start changing its course, Gingang has warned. That's a big thing when China says something like that in the to the United States and is the newly appointed foreign minister for China. While that was going on, thoughts by chance? You want to say anything about China? He's gonna like, hell no, I get my production money from there. No,
Yeah, that's
China, we love you. Oh my God, thank you for making my water bottle. You make me feel good, and so do you. Now, we're going to talk about something else that was going on at the same time that Gingang was saying that, and that was the Conservative Political Action Convention was going on in Florida, I believe. Do you know what that is? CPAC?
I don't.
No. CPAC is the annual convention for basically really conservative Christian Republicans to get together. Now, for the last year, specifically since the 90s up to this year, it has been a massive force, and everybody who's ever running for presidency or governorships or something that is in the Republican Conservative Party, or the right wing of the United States of America, from which I hail and where you live. But you live in a very blue area.
I do.
But it's a different thing. Oh, hi. But they gathered together, and Donald Trump was their main recipient. Now, this man said, and I am not joking, he said, not only did he say that I am your leader, he intimated that he's your leader, but he is your retribution for anybody who feels wronged. And that you put me back in the White House, and everything's going to change, and this other party will never be able to have any more power again. And then he went on to talk about Vladimir. He did not even say Putin. He just taught him Vladimir. And I have a good relationship. And I promise you, and I can make this easy, in one day, that he would stop World War III. Because you're going to have a World War III if things don't change. And it's a very interesting drama, an interesting thing, because for the first time, they had approximately 35 to 45% of their typical populace there. Instead of the tens of thousands, they had maybe 1 to 2,000. And it was a very different affair. Why? Hold on. Dry mouth from speaking too much. Just from speaking too much, Lucas? Yes, just from speaking too much. And there's a man named Matt Schlapp, and Matt Schlapp, like Schlapp, but almost like Yiddish, like Schlapp. He is a hardcore member of the Republican Party, but he's also the leader of the CPAC. And during a senatorial candidateship that was going on in November for a man named Herschel Walker, who was a footballer back in the day, he was doing some campaigning for this guy and his driver, and he went out to have a few drinks, and then he started to grope the driver's groin. Now, this is a married man of, I don't know how many, but white Christians, so a lot of kids. And he continued to grope the man and tried to get him to seduce him into his hotel room. The man broke down and left and made a voice note to one of his friends, who then mailed it off to the Herschel Walker campaign. And that's the leader of CPAC. These are the people who have continuously campaigned against the LGBTQ community. And now this man has been caught with his pecker in places where it shouldn't be, and his hand groping things, which is not new because, Christians. So it's just one of those things. But back here in Europe, just remember, if you can want to catch some of the CPAC, look at some of the segments just on YouTube, and you will say, what is this cult? And we'll talk later. Finally, back here in Europe, more tennis drama with unvaccinated Djokovic. I love tennis. Everyone who knows me knows that shite. But he's withdrawing for tenement, supposedly, for now. Why? Because he won't get vaccinated, and there's so many visa debacles. He is no longer the number one player in the world right now. Not in history, because that's Serena. Okay. But the number one player won't be because he refuses to get vaccinated. I have to ask you, thoughts as a filmmaker who has to work on both sides of the is it still a thing in filmmaking to be vaccinated, to have tests?
In the shootings, it is, yeah.
Exactly.
you have to, every day before starting, you have to do it, and it's a way to protect the production because otherwise, you can lose a lot of money.
Exactly.
So, right.
And when things are invested in that nature. So Djokovic, again, will not be Novak Djokovic. No, I'm just kidding. Novak Djokovic will not be doing that. One more thing, though, quickly. This is released over the Al Gore's interwebs over the weekend. Wonderful report on Rolling Stone by Miles Klee, so I really recommend that. But apparently, Twitter bots, since Elon Musk took over, our favorite white South African, since Twitter bots are, since he took over, apparently Twitter bots are promising cheap guns to anybody who progressively and consistently uses the N-word. You know, the words that a lot of Spaniards and Catalans think they can just drop here because, it's in the rap and stuff, y'all. Okay, no. So the question about this article, which I again recommend from RollingStone.com, is about, are these undercover cops? Are these phishing scams? Are they attempts that Elon Musk and Twitter are allowing to sow more racial division within an already not racially divided country? Something to think about. And also, I want to say one more thing to the parents, because eventually throughout the week is when most people start watching this. And parents, yes, we're going to be talking about, obviously, communist country. But one thing that separates TikTok from the rest of the world, specifically the West, from China, is that TikTok has a daily quota of 40 minutes before it shuts you down and you can't go back on for 24 hours. Now, that's one thing that a lot of people are going to say, but that's because it's communist. And yeah, you're right, bitch. But it's also because they're aware that over on the West, they're going to be raising more little middle class and spoiled upper middle class zombies. And that's a way to keep them and keep them at home, like 63% of the population of 30-year-olds in this country till they're 30, or 18.5% of 40-year-olds still living at home at this country. Now, that doesn't bode well for people like you and I, who are 39. And as we move in through 40s and 50s and 60s, are these the kids who are going to be taking care of us when they're still living at home at 30, 40? Children of the corn, parents, think about that shit. Okay. Let's throw a little bit more music on here because Pink Pantheress is someone that we played here a lot. When we come back, we're going to do one little thing because it is International Women's Day, and I would like to talk really quickly about a writer, a poet, actually, and someone very important into the women's movement, specifically here in Catalonia. But Pink Pantheress and Ice Spice. Pink Pantheress hails from London town, and Ice Spice hails from the Bronx. And they've come together to do a part 2 version of Boys Alaya, which we played at the end of last year. But I'm loving this. And Ice Spice apparently has just blown off the Spotify and iTunes charts. She's actually kicked Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, and somebody else off one of the top charts. So that hasn't happened in a while. Here's Pink Panthers and Ice Spice. We'll be back in 2 minutes for a little bit of news. And Alex Lora. We'll be right back.
Look inside your heart. Is there any room for me? I won't have to hold my breath till you get down on one knee, because you only want to hold me when I'm looking good enough. Did you ever fool me? Would you ever picture us? Every time I pull my hair out, was only out of fear that you'll find me ugly and one day you'll disappear. Cause what's the point of crying? It was never even enough. Did you ever want me? Was I ever good enough? Good boys are layers. Good boys are layers. He doesn't see her. You're not looking at me, boy. Good boys are layers. Good boys are layers. He doesn't see her. You're not looking at me, boy. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough.
He say that I'm good enough, got him out there, think about shit that I should've known. So I tell him it's one of me, he making fun of me. His girl is a bum to me, like that boy is a cat. Saying he home, but I know where he at. Like, bet he blowing her back. Think about me, cause he know that it's fat. And it been what it been. Calling his phone like he'll send me a pin. Ducking my shit cause he know what I'm on. But when he hit me, I'm not gonna respond. But I don't sleep enough without you. And I can't eat enough without you. If you don't speak, does that mean we're through? Don't like sneaky shit that you do.
Good boys are layers. Good boys are layers. He doesn't see her. You're not looking at me, boy. Good boys are layers. Good boys are layers. He doesn't see her. You're not looking at me, boy. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough.
His name is Alex as well.
Hey,
My brother.
baby Alex everywhere. All right, that was Pink Panthers and Ice Spice, and we are here with Sir Alex Lora. Ah, I love that hat. In fact, in just 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to be talking with him and about his new film Unicornios and his career that's just coming out in a month and a half. But we're going to honor over this month. We're going to want to talk about famous, specifically important Catalan women who have made a mark, and especially on this month where we should always be honoring women anyway, just at least respect and hello. But Caterina Alberti Paradis, she was actually born in 1886 and died in 66, so she had a nice, ripe life. But this woman, Caterina, won the Jocs Florals de Lot Prize in 1898 for her poem Lo Libra, no, the new book, and her theatrical monologue entitled La Infanticidia, Madonna, Infanticide. Now, however, when the voting judges found out that she was a woman and wore a skirt, they wanted to take this ish away from her, and she said, okay, bitches, well, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take on a pseudonym, which many women of the time were doing, in fact, specifically in Spain and a bit in France, too. I will say it was mostly English literature later and American literature that started publishing women, in the 18th to 19th centuries, which was that was very rare for that to happen, specifically in Spain and Italy, because, never mind. But, however, with this scandal, she took on the pseudonym Victor Català for all her writings. And according to the website of the Generalitat de Catalunya, they ultimately enabled her to become one of the foremost figures of Catalan narrative and poetry at the time due to her capability of transmitting an infinite amount of sentiment and sensation, which might have been, capable for people like Wadsworth Longfellow and whatnot. But sometimes it's harder for certain men to get through the emotionality of things. Of course, things were different at that nature and at that time. But her book, Solitud, marked the starting point of an exploration of female identity by a female writer. And again, according to the website of the Generalitat, is one of the principal novels in Catalan of the 20th century. She continued to generally write about tragic narratives, surprise, about the rural world that focused on the struggle of individual against hostile elements, a theme that was not uncommon by a lot of men in the modernist movement. The Victor Català Prize was established in 1953 in homage to the writer and people who fight for that, and the Hotel Ser Victor and Gaia Rosselló is actually named for her, although I don't know why they didn't name Hotel Caterina. Shit, but that's just another thing. Let's segue to you, sir. Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us here on the Club with Lucas on English Radio and RCE 106.9 FM. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
And after this, we're going to get some coffee, sir.
For sure.
Wow, okay, so let's start with the basics that we have to start with. Where are you from?
I am from Barcelona. I was born in the Gothic quartier in that neighborhood, and I grew up
In
there.
which neighborhood, I'm sorry?
In the Gothic.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Which street, sir? Which street?
You know Avenue Street?
Yeah, of course.
It's funny. It's called Comtessa de Sobradiel, which is where the Harlem Jazz Club is. So I didn't know, back then that I would, move to Harlem some years after.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was like kind of a premonition.
Are you living in Harlem?
I lived in Harlem. Yeah, it was
Whereabouts in Harlem? Don't tell me 145th in Amsterdam.
Man, Convent, not Amsterdam. So right next to it.
My first boyfriend lived there, and I was, always there.
Yeah.
What?
You know that church in that?
Yes, I know that church. I went there.
Yeah, my house. Well, I wish my house. The apartment I was living in, the second apartment I live in New York was there, and I stayed there for 3-4 years before moving to Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah, before they priced us all out, motherfucker. No, I'm kidding.
Right. No.
Brooklyn actually is more expensive than Manhattan. Some parts of Manhattan right now.
That's true.
That shit is real, but we'll talk about that on a different tip. So you're from here. Now, was there something that led to the trajectory? Because you have been consistently working in many aspects of cinema for a hot minute. As we said before, he's only 39, children, like me. And so when you do that, what led the trajectory of your career? Was there a eureka moment where you thought, I need to do this?
Not really. I mean, I always liked to watch movies, and I used to go with my father to the cinema and at home. That was, back then was a fun thing to do. And I remember, though, a professor that gave us a little bit more of freedom to to do this kind of papers, and instead of writing, she would allow us to, come up with different forms to express ourselves. And my parents have, one of those old video 8 cameras for recording the vacation, and my father was a little bit protective of that. But then I said, it's for a school. So then he had to let me use it, and maybe that was a spark a little bit. And then, you turn 18, you don't know what to do. And
what subject was that teacher in, out of curiosity?
It was literature. So suddenly she would say like, okay, write me something about my child. And then I would go like, can I actually put one of his poem into images, And she was like, yeah, I would love that. So I would go and record pigeons and the city, whatever, and I would kind of cut it together using the VHS video and the camera, and that would turn into something that she would kind of appreciate. And then when you feel appreciated, yeah.
But, okay, so then I'm going to ask a deeper question. Here comes that history educator inside of me. What led to that? Because your mind seeing that wasn't just because your teacher said, yeah, you can explore that. Something led to you being creative-minded like that. Did you read a lot as a kid? Comics?
I like to draw a lot. And in matter of fact, I didn't pass the test in order to get into the fine arts college.
You mean like...
Yeah, so it was a 2 days test, and that's what I wanted to do, to go to fine art college, but I didn't pass the exam. So instead of,
like Hitler? Actually, look it up, history, children.
Oh my God, I'm too old for that,
Like I said, coffee after the show. Now, okay, so you didn't get into the art college.
I didn't get into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then, there was this library. It was called Del Miro de Caral Library, the Filmoteca one,
man.
there in the Drasanas. So that was amazing. When I discovered that, I would spend, I even would skip some lessons to spend time there. And I discovered a lot of films, and especially there was one, Chris Marker, the La Jetée, that was made out of pictures, just pictures. And there is just one image that moves, it's this lady, you think that it's a still image, but suddenly she blinks. And it's the only movement in the whole movie, and it's at around 30 minutes movie. And then I was like, hey, this guy, like I was not very humble, but I was like, hey, this guy made a movie out of still pictures. Maybe I can start doing some things for the school. So when she asked for that, I had the movie in mind. And then I was like, I'm going to try to do this. So it was a combination of watching all movies and then this professor allowing us to do it. Yeah.
Okay, see. All right, I'm gonna nerd out a little bit because we both hail from where he lives, and I come from a city that is treasured in the world. But you've won a couple of New York Emmys. Now, Emmys are the National Association, the television awards that are given out. They're like the Goyas or Gaudis of television in the U.S., North America, really, but they now incorporate a lot of international stuff because of streaming. What does that mean when you win a New York Emmy? Can you?
Yeah, I mean,
educate me.
the big ones, to say it that way, are the national, right? But they have these chapters all around the country. Just surprise a little bit them. I would say, the smaller channels, TV channels, right? So it's actually fun. You submit the work you've done during the year for your TV station. Ours, it's called CUNY TV. It's on channel 75. And
City University, New York, Children of the Corn.
Right. So we try every year, and it just happened. And
what does your program revolve around?
It's about Latin community in New York. It's actually in Spanish, and we feature artists, politicians, writers, everything that has to do, musicians, with culture in general, but with Latino flavor. And, some are immigrants, some others are first, second generation, some others are, speak like Spanglish. So we are very open. And it's fun, the thing that I love the most is that every week is different, and you meet different people, and that's amazing. That's priceless.
When you win these local Emmys like that, I believe you've also won a Gaudi. You've been a Goya nominated a couple of times. The Fourth Kingdom actually is something that you received a lot of recognition for in that documentary in that sense as well. And it's now streaming on Film In, Power to the People, and the local apps. You can catch that right now by Alex Lora on Film In. What does it feel like to get that kind of recognition after all the years you've sown?
Yeah, I mean, it feels nice. To be honest, when I get the recognition, I think, okay, this will help me to maybe get some more funding for the next project, you know. So
That's the thing.
for me, it's more that side, you know. And I always think that awards, you don't really need to want them, but you don't really need to deserve them on the other way. So you never know when you're gonna get an award, because then you watch the people you are competing with and you say like, wait, this movie is way better than mine. I wish I would have done that. And then you get the award and you're confused.
Is that because you're your harshest critic that you say that?
No, sometimes happens. Sometimes happens the other way, that they say, well, I like, better what I did, But it's, in my opinion, a little bit random. That's what I think. So it's important, in my opinion. Okay, yes, it's important in order to try to get more funding or to try to get them trust of the producers. Then in that sense, yes. But other than that, I think it's just, for the ego, like, yeah.
And you control that ego, of course.
I try, well, sometimes I'm like, yeah, we did the best F movie.
You can say it here. It's okay. Well, then that takes me back to, I have to throw on another song. Okay, hold on, Children of the Corn. We're going to throw on another song for you and be right back. This is actually some R&B love from a new girl who's just throwing out. She's an independent artist named Farah Audali. And this song is called On the Run. And this is just 3 or 4 minutes of pleasure. And we'll be right back with Sir Alex Lora. change. Okay, let's talk about change. That was Farah Al-Dali, and we're going to change to something right now. The pandemic-released documentary, The Fourth Kingdom, it highlighted a lot about my city that a lot of people don't know about that. But even with the things that we just talked about, how much do social, cultural topics affect what you want to create with your art? In a general sense, I say.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I care the most when I try to, approach to a project.
Why?
I don't know. I don't really know. I think that it just touches me. Maybe because I have a disability, or I don't know. Maybe because there are some Christian background there that you don't totally got rid of, unfortunately. So I don't really know, but maybe sometimes, and I'm sorry to be that honest, but sometimes there is something a little bit morbidous about it, like morbid that, curiosity, but sometimes even in a bad way, and I think it's, you want to know about people that sometimes in a bad position, and that's when you analyze yourself, you say like, no, this doesn't come from a good place in my heart. But on the other hand, I think that giving more importance to the good part of your heart, maybe you can do something that helps, So, humans are very complex, but yeah.
Okay, that's a good, perfect minute sound cut for Instagram Reels. Oh my God, guys. Now, the thing is, when we're talking about that situation, a lot of things that you told me when we spoke earlier have affected what you wanted to make. Specifically, experimental filmmaker, Belgian experimental filmmaker Chantal Ackerman, who was a friend and mentor of yours. In fact, as well, Film In, for everybody who has it as well, is also doing retrospective of her career, which is fantastic. So I highly recommend checking that out as well on Film In. But what was it about her almost sometimes cinema verité look at things that inspired you, that you loved or were drawn to?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was I knew her work before moving to the United States, but it was a combination of facts. When I got the Fulbright grant, there was only, there was an amount for the tuition, which I thought that was a lot of money, but then other, colleges like NYU or Columbia, that was not enough. So then I started looking for cheaper ones instead of going to the bank and ask for credit. And I saw that she was teaching at City College, and, Fulbright could
permit that.
Yeah. But I wanted to just go for narrative films, and she's in this hybrid world. And she her and another professor, Antonio Cibaldi, kind of opened my eyes. And then
Antonio Cibaldi,
yeah, another filmmaker. I've worked with him a lot after after finished school, because we became friends and stuff. But Chantal was she was tough sometimes. She was such a character. I remember that one of the first exercise that she asked us to do was a portrait, like a documentary, right? And I was like, no, but I don't want to make this. I came here to make narratives, And she was like, well, why? I mean, I don't speak English very well, and I won't. Do you think I speak English very well? So if you cannot find a person to do a portrait here in New York with 1 million people, even counting yourself, you could even make a self-portrait. You should pack your bags and go back to your country, So she was this kind of lady, smoking in the college, done giving a shit for the rules, having trouble with the chair of the school. But on the other hand, she was so inspiring. And if you were, like not polite, I mean, if you were real, she would approach to you, and that kind of created a little bit of relationship, because sometimes I would be late when she was mentoring for my films, and then she was kind of joking like, do you know who I am? I'm fucking Chantal Ackerman, and you just made me wait 30 minutes here. I mean, what on earth?
You did that?
You would fall asleep, these kind of things that the students do. So it was nice. And back then she had a Greek girlfriend, and I just broke up a year before with my Greek girlfriend. So we had some things in common to talk about, having a coffee and stuff. And she was a big inspiration, like, fuck the rules and just fail and fail more, and then she would say.
Sometimes you really have to be that, because it gets so complicated, I believe, and that industry would be Really complicated to sometimes keep your head on.
Right.
I'm going to throw on a really quick 2.5 minute ditty, and I want to come back and talk about that. And the song is called Complicated, actually. What the hell? Princess Nokia. Oh my God, I just love that. So for those of you who are missing a little bit of drum and bass in your music these days, here's a little bit of that for you. This is Complicated with Princess Nokia. We'll be right back in 2.5 with Alex Lora. I'm going to talk about
You waited all your life to say you fucking had me. Ran into your place and then I love you madly. You ruined everything and that's so fucking sassy. Because we had a chance and then you had the backseat. Match all her love, I thought we never had to go there. I threw your stuff out in the concerts that you had here. I saw your demons and I told my friends that I'm scared. Scared. Falling apart and I cannot take it. You make it complicated. The wreck you have created, I know, don't even say it. Falling apart and I cannot take it. You make it complicated. The wreck you have created, I know, don't even say it. Guess you're just all the same. I have no one to blame. You think that people change based upon their past mistakes. Chances they take and take to throw it in your face. You want to take your space, but what we had was really great. You can't commit to the promise that you made me. You can't commit to the life we were making. You needed time to reflect on the moment. I would have given you anything that you wanted. Falling apart and I cannot take it. You make it complicated. The wreck you have created, I know, don't even say it. Falling apart and I cannot take it. You make it complicated. The wreck you have created, I
Is there anything I miss about that? Okay, that was Princess Nokia. Let's get back with Alex Lora. When we're talking about the dichotomy, you got to New York City as a young man, 16 years old. And what was the dichotomy or culture shock for you? Because you talk about your English, but your English is quite superb now. But what was one part of the culture shock for you when you arrived from Catalonia, Capaya?
I mean, I got there in a privileged situation, I have to say. You know, I didn't have to worry about work. I had an stipend for the grant every month. But, you know, I still, as a white, spoiled kid, you always have some things to complain about. And it was tough at the beginning. The winter kind of started very early. I thought that there was no season. Suddenly, I was like sweating, and the day after it was snowing, like
September, October.
Right, and I was like, oh, this is so beautiful, so nice, But after the second days, after dealing with 3
There's a lot of sun, though. You do get sun.
That's true. That's true. That's actually, you really appreciate it.
Saves you.
Yes, because the sky is always bright,
It's different, yo.
and that's amazing. That's great. But it's cold, and that year especially was very cold, and also people are and I think it's something that has to do with the culture, very, very straightforward. They don't, here we go around a lot until you arrive to the point, and then after, 5 minutes of the conversation, it's like, what do you want? Tell me, there they will start with that, and sometimes you think that it's not polite, or it's harsh, or they are, a little bit.
Why do you think it's like that there?
I don't know. It's like more business oriented, like.
Moves with the dollar. That's why it's moving with the dollar.
I think it's related with capitalism, but when you move there, that intimidates you. You don't think it's related with that, but once you get over that, I think it's the energy is very good. There are always things to do. The American person has this mentality of win-win. If you win, if they win too, so they help you.
We all win.
Yeah, exactly. Here, sometimes I notice sometimes, maybe because we were young also before I left, but sometimes there was jealousy, when we were working in projects. I don't think there is jealousy there. If you're doing something great and someone can, add himself or herself to that, everybody's happy. So,
Which is kind of what we would want in those art movements, That's why those collectives would happen, like with the Andy Warhol kids and the little movie kids and then Basquiat, and that collects those movements. A little bit in England too, sometimes I would say. But let's talk about modern projects, because as we said, Filmax is going to be releasing your latest production, Unicornios. What is that about? Because it's a flip-flop on what we usually think about relationships and sexuality. Can we talk about that just a little bit?
yeah, I mean, it's... it touches... I don't know. At the end, it's a mix of things. It touches so many different angles. It's a story about this girl. Her name is Sisa, performed by Greta Fernandez. I think she's amazing in the film. And
She seems like a natural.
oh my God,
Right?
she's a beast.
Okay.
I don't know if you can, it's hereditary or something like that, but she's amazing. So she has to deal with this new form of communication, related with the social media, also dealing with some pressure that society puts on you, because sometimes if you don't become an artist or something like that, you feel like you fail in your life. Also with some things that family also put on you, because sometimes it's very easy to say, no, this was my responsibility, but sometimes family doesn't totally help you or maybe neglect you. So there are a bunch of things that collide, and also sexuality, and and
In this modern age.
exactly. And I think it's a way to say that maybe we need to mature, a little bit, or grow up.
Do you see, as a youngish Catalan guy, that there has been a maturation somewhat from, let's say, the 80s, 90s to today here in our community?
I mean, it's very bad that I would say so, because, it's typical that older generation always, is kind of hits the younger generation. It's kind of not nice.
It's touche.
Yeah,
Cliche,
it's
rather.
very cliche. But on the other hand, being honest, I do. I think that now I sound like my father, man.
No, but part of it is this shit, right?
I think
here.
so. Yeah.
I don't think so. We know so. And for those parents who have kids who are battling spectrum things and autism and disorder, hell no. In 1980, Prince wrote a song that said, "Parents, don't let your children watch TV until they learn how to read. Otherwise, all they do is learn how to cuss, fight, and bleed." And that's true. And that was Prince 43 years ago. And now we have this shit. How does that affect, in general, you as a father when you're also making films in between two countries?
The fact of the not letting them use the device, it's very difficult. So at the end, you're tired, you're doing all these things, the kid can be annoying. So it's a way to put it, to kind of turn the kid off. You just, he becomes a zombie or she becomes a zombie. You just turn it on, and you just get a break.
It's like a drug.
But
you give them a drug, so you can have
It's
a relax.
bad.
And it's terrible.
It's
and this is
bad.
why I repeat the whole TikTok thing. Really quickly before we run out of time, you also have something in post-production called Moses coming out. What is that about?
Actually, it's something that I'm not directing. I was
Right.
helping Fran Guijarro, who is an amazing filmmaker and a very good friend, and also was produced by Martin Rosete, who was, I edited his film, another amazing filmmaker. And it's a documentary that happens in San Francisco. He started following a homeless person, and what started like a project for film school, it evolved till a point in which Fran really helped him, and they help each other, I guess, and it's an amazing story. He's trying to find his daughter, and he's out of drugs now. He does not live in the street anymore. So, and
San Francisco story.
yeah, San Francisco story.
My brother lived there in Pacific Heights for years.
Oh,
I know
so
San
then
Fran very well.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, when is that coming out?
I hope this year or next year. He's looking for a
Okay.
film festival now.
Brilliant. Let's get that in the film festival circus now. You can catch Unicornios will be dropping in cinemas as well as The Fourth Kingdom, which is out on Film In right now, and where all good things are streamed. Sir, I want to have you back when the next time something's coming out. Alex Lora, thank you so much for being here and joining us on the club. If you could give one piece of advice really quickly to somebody who wants to join or get into the filmmaking business, what would you say? A little urchin, 15, 17-year-old wanting to do that, what would you tell them?
I mean, I will steal Chantal Ackerman's words, what she used to say to me, fail more, and fail best with a French accent, It was sweet, but...
Belgian accent, but yes.
Belgian accent, yeah. A lot of truth in that, because if you don't do it, you probably, kind of stop yourself, and it's not worth it.
Exactly. Yeah. Mediocrity sucks. Children of the Corn, we are here every Tuesday serving up what's good for you in the English, as you already know. And again, this month, we're going to be serving a lot more of our sisters and their love. In fact, we will have Vesna Gino, if not next week, the week after, to give you a little bit of lifestyle and nutrition advice. She's going to get my ass in gear. And everybody have a beautiful week. Keep it real, keep it distance, keep it love. We will see you on the flip side. We had a couple of songs lined up, but you know what? The power of Christ compelled me to talk more with my homeboy here. So we're going to leave you with a little bit of more independent love from a girl who hails from the States. Her name is Annie Blackman. She was apparently inspired as a young little girl by the acoustic music of Taylor Swift. But her music is really, really good, and I like Annie Blackman's music. So this is a song called Ash, just dropped over the weekend. Have a beautiful time, and we'll see you on the flip side next Tuesday at 11 o'clock here on RCE 106.9. Ciao, everybody.
You pity me and I turn my head. Am I upset? Well, how would you like me to answer that? The heartless leave the cards, the jest. I do my best and cry till the cat doesn't look in.